morning, good afternoon, and good night, and welcome to the Shadow Raptors official podcast on HBO's The Last of Us, where we seek the art beyond the clickers. I'm Brandon Alvarado, one of your hosts, and I'm accompanied by the Shadow After Beyond the Clickers crew, Mike Thomas and Robert Taylor. What's up, guys?
Hello.
Happy to be back.
This is it's the episode that we all knew was coming, but it's the episode that has hit in so many ways that we thought we were hit hard this season, but this episode really hit hard. And I think I mentioned it on Blue Sky Social because I write things there sometime. But I my what I'm digesting from the episode, and we're gonna get into it as we go through our overview, divergence, and things that stayed sections. But one of the things that I want to see where I end up after having this conversation with you guys is is how this particular episode it's really gonna coexist or be reviewed as a phenomenal performance within a bubble or a phenomenal performance as part of a whole, because there's a lot of concerns that we've had with maybe the direction in the way that season has been streamlined or presented to us, and where this episode falls there. I'm able to clearly see why the creators made this episode, and all the different moments that we feel and experience here. But it makes me think how we're all going to see season two as a whole, and also how we're going to see season two in the midst of the entirety of the presentation of their version of part two of The Last of Us. But it was a good episode. It's a great episode. I mean, it's one of the best episodes of the series, I think. Um, but Robert, you just saw it like probably what 30 minutes ago.
No, like 10 minutes ago, the episode
Oh, wasn't that
ended.
late?
I literally finished the episode and ran straight here to talk to you guys. Fantastic episode of television. Easily the best episode of the series this year. Easily. Everybody's, Emmy reel was in this episode. Certainly Pedro and Bella's Emmy reels are in this episode.
Yep.
And
Yep.
quite frankly, I don't know. I don't watch a ton of TV, but I feel like they should be winning Emmy reels. Like, I mean, there's just astounding work done in this episode. Your point is interesting about, well, is it great in a bubble, or is it great in a way that it brings up the whole, lifts up the whole season?
Right.
And
which I think episode 7 will tell us, but
I
yeah.
I don't think there's an easy answer to that, and I don't think there's it's certainly not going to tilt 100% either of those ways. If I had to pick one, I'm probably picking bubble, because it doesn't necessarily solve many of the issues that us three have had with this season. The one issue it does solve is a problem that I don't think any of us particularly had. It was just a problem that our non-game playing friends were coming to us with, which, we talked about them a lot with those first two episodes of why is Ellie so mad? Why is this Ellie so much angrier than what we were used to from season one, with not a lot of context given? Now I don't think we had much concerns about that, because we played the game and knew the backstory and knew what was coming. I'm hoping for, our friends and the watchers who are not game players. I hope they sort of, had that problem fixed for them with this episode, had that edge sanded off for them. Because it did. It really, this episode did an amazing job of sort of filling in all the blanks.
Yes.
But, that were sort of purposely left open in those early episodes this year. Yeah. Now, was this the right way to lay out this season? They didn't have to do it this way. There's some stuff we saw tonight, I believe, that happens earlier in the game, and there's some stuff we saw that happens later in the game. So, there's sort of a rearranging of the material that just makes it a more interesting. It's hard to say whether this is better or worse. It's just different.
Correct.
So it's fun to
We
be here
have
to
to
act.
see, like, we need to see the whole thing, and then kind of
Right.
determine, because
So
it's very hard
yeah.
to do anything beyond extrapolating at this point.
So I mean, I finished it 10 minutes ago. I don't even know yet. I'm still wrapping my head around it. It's fun to be on here with you gentlemen to talk it out and to see if we think this works for us. But separate from that, as you know, an hour-long episode of television, what a banger. I mean, what a banger. I
Yeah.
don't think it's the best episode of the series. I mean, I don't think we're up to the level of episode 3 of season 1. That was the Bill and Frank episode, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I still think season 1 was hitting higher highs, but I mean, this was a lot of this episode reminded me of why I love these characters and this story and this game and this show.
No. Nicely said. Nicely said.
Yeah,
Mike, what do you hate tonight?
What do I hate? Seth. First off, you know, as a Wisconsinite, as a native Milwaukeean, Seth is just the worst person imaginable, and he reminds me of too many people from my hometown. So yeah, there you go. That's my hate for it. It's all directed at Seth. And he doesn't even know how to spell on a birthday cake. Come on, man. It's a kid's birthday, and you go with Eli. What are we doing?
He probably sees. You know what? I'm gonna save that. I'm gonna put it in the back burner, and you know.
He makes good looking sandwiches though. We know that from earlier in the season, right?
Come on now.
Yeah.
Come on now.
He's got his moments.
You know, just wait around the kitchen.
No, but this episode is phenomenal. Like, it is undoubtedly for me the best episode of the season, and I am so frustrated with how this season is going and where this is placed, and it's so confusing because the way that the series has gone thus far in season 2, it just highlights that we really need Pedro Pascal in this show. Because
well, I got some bad news, Mike.
I know, but it's like he's
all fighting Galactus.
I know, right? Fantastic Four. No, but
brought to you in Fantastivision.
Yeah, it's unfortunate though, because he's undoubtedly the strongest actor in this entire show, and him being missing for like the last 5 episodes, you don't really feel it until he comes back, and you're like, yeah, this is the show I fell in love with. This is the game I fell in love with, and it just highlights. This is it. This is the goodbye to Joel Miller, and I don't know if that's a good thing, in the sense that I might have made this episode 4. I might have made this episode like episode 3 or 4, right? Like when Joel is killed in episode 2, I probably would have had episode 3 as is, and then have this episode, and then we understand why Ellie is the way that she is, and it kind of fixes that. Why is Ellie acting this way? Blah blah blah. You now get to say, the audience gets a proper goodbye to Joel. We now understand why Ellie is so adamant of going on this mission, because of how we left that relationship. I think it would have flowed a little bit better, I guess, because having Ellie and Dina go on this side quest in Seattle, where we haven't even gotten to the main objective until the end of last week's episode, cutting away from that entirely, and then having a full-on flashback episode, just, I don't think it helps the narrative at all. And I think that's kind of what Robert was hinting at a little bit of, like, in a bubble, in a vacuum, this is a fantastic episode. I don't know how much this is helping the story overall and Ellie's journey overall. If anything, it's just a showcase of, we were all watching the show for Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey, and they took that from us, and then now they give it back, and they expect me to show up to a finale next week. I got to see how that plays out. It leaves me feeling conflicted, I guess.
Not only that, but we get a bunch of stuff with younger Ellie again, who, as compared to 19-year-old Ellie, I think the writers have a firmer grasp of younger Ellie. And I think Bella Ramsey might have a firmer grasp of younger Ellie, but we'll see. She's got time. So
you see that these are the things I was bringing up a couple weeks ago. And now you guys are starting to see my point. That's why it's like it highlights it to me. It just kind of reaffirms some of the things I was feeling before. And it's like, yeah, this is the show we probably should have gotten. Like I was always of the mindset of I wanted a TV show original season to kind of help that transition of getting Ellie into the main character role and phasing Joel out. But we didn't get that. This episode kind of just highlights, yeah, we probably should have had a couple episodes of Joel and Ellie being Joel and Ellie. And then we do the time jump, and then all the other shit happens. But it is what it is. As it stands, once we get into this actual episode, I'll be way more positive. Trust me. I love this episode. Top 3 episodes of Tila.
Yeah, and it's the other issue is, which we've talked about several times, is the fact that we're breaking up a single video game story that works so well because it is a single video game story. And then we find out that Brandon was right in his prediction that it looks like we're going 3 seasons with this adaptation of this game, that it's going to extend into a 4th season. And that's just a tricky adaptation with this game where it doesn't really fully hit home until you see the full picture and the big picture and the full themes at play.
Yeah.
And, we're not going to have that by the end of next week.
And just to jump in to confirm that, I don't know if Brandon, you saw the news, but Mason was like, yeah, we're doing 4 seasons today in some press stuff. I don't know if you had a chance to read that, but I just wanted to make sure you were aware. Yeah, we're getting 4 seasons.
So Craig and I had this conversation last week. And no, see, so I'm happy about that. Not because I'm right. It's just because I just see that the way the story goes in the game, you can clearly divide it in those 3 sections. It also makes sense you wanting to devote, being very careful here, you want to devote a lot of time to the characters that take precedence and are in the forefront of that 3rd season story. To make everything land in the end. There's a lot of heavy lifting that has to be done and expansion that has to be done with those characters to really bring the message of the series home. So I just hope that they really do, because one of the things that Craig and Neil have shown, and now Haley Gross as she's come in as a writer as well, and a executive producer, one of the things that they've shown us is that they are willing to expand to enrich the message and the growth of these characters. And you can, and those that love this game, I think we can admit that the characters that are going to be in the forefront coming soon in season 3 deserve that type of expansion in their role, in their story. And I think we need that. So being able to expand it to a total of 3 seasons for part 2, it just makes sense. And also, even if you do the final season as a minimized but like a Game of Thrones expanded episodes, because they've been doing, these episodes are almost 50 to a minute 10 a clip each episode. So doing that type, like another 7 episode season or 5 episode season, and then another 4 episodes to close season 4, I think it makes sense because they're going to give us enough for us to chew and really, I don't want to say fall, but really be able to see eye to eye with these characters, which I think these characters deserve that attention. But no, I didn't know because I don't watch news because life is hard.
Completely unrelated to all of these reports, Neil Druckmann is working on another video game after Intergalactic at Naughty Dog. So will we be getting a Last of Us season 5 and 6 when the time comes? We shall see.
But see, you know what's funny? Because now I'm being the stupid gamer, right? You know how everybody said Last of Us Part 1 is a perfect game. We don't need anything else. And suddenly Part 2 is announced. It's like, I need Part 2. And it's like, Part 2 and Part 1 is a perfect story. I don't need any more. And then he comes up with Part 3, and I'm like, okay, I'll play it again.
Listen, man, I'm just hoping for Uncharted 5. That's all I want out of Naughty Dog. They don't need to give me more out.
Drake's Uncharted 5, Drake's descendants, and it's literally Drake's daughter or something.
Caitlin Deaver, she needs work right after the
Come
season's
on
wrapped
now.
up.
Come on now.
No, but we have to get into this one, right? We've got to actually dive into this episode.
Oh, we're
So
doing
I
that?
can I need to say something positive because I'm still on the ancillary. I don't know how this actually ties into the full season. Let me
Yeah.
fanboy over this episode, Brandon, please.
Okay. So this episode, the way it starts, we got to talk about the cold open. And as we end, the cold open is a great place to start talking about the things, the divergence and expansion that they do on this episode. And I'm a big fan of cold opens, and not just for comedy shows, but for great shows like this one. And I gotta say, Last of Us keeps giving us nice surprises and great character moments. And Tony Dalton makes an appearance as Joel's father. And this scene of teenage Joel and Tommy, um, what a powerful scene and what a great opportunity to get into the mind of Joel Miller, of the things that made him who he is. Um, I don't know, man. The moment that Joel's dad went to the cabinet, I felt the tension of, oh no, he's gonna do something. But then he pulled out 2 beers, and then he just starts opening to this kid. Like, man, bro, that's I don't have kids, but as a man, I know what it is to be on the other side of that conversation. I know what it is to be Joel, right? I've had moments with people, with men that I admire and respect in my life and understand better now as I'm older. And those are one of those moments where it's like when you find out that the people you think are indestructible are not, right? And I don't know, man. The way they set the tone with that and how they bring it together towards the end. A great cold open and new opening scene. Um, what was your thoughts, guys?
Yeah. First off, the intro is back to normal. I just wanted to point that out.
It's not back to normal, Mike. Stop
It's
fighting against reality.
no. You see, we have
Stop.
Joel and Ellie in the intro. Back as usual.
Stop.
All is right with the
Stop
world.
it.
You see the format for the people watching on YouTube and on Spotify, and they see the video. You see everything's back to normal here with the background and the overlays. No, but nice touch. I like that it's actually taking us back in time, even
Yeah.
from the opening sequence.
Yeah.
But yeah, the swordsman as Joel's father, so interesting. I never expected to see Joel's childhood. I do like how it kind of opens up his psyche a bit more, and we see why he makes the decisions he makes
Yeah.
throughout the first season, throughout the game, but also with things we do with like Eugene, right? Later on in this episode, it all goes back to this moment of him being that protector, right? And even if it's not in a healthy way, much like his father, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
I think that's such a fascinating turn for the character. I don't know how much that helps the story of The Last of Us 2, because The Last of Us 2 is very much a Joel did the wrong thing and it had consequences. And I think making us even bigger Joel sympathizers might kind of negatively affect some decisions the story would make later on. But again, as it stands, this is a fantastic scene. I love going back in time. The year threw me off. I don't know if it messed with you guys because I'm like, the timeline doesn't add up, but I think I was thinking of the game's timeline because
Yes.
everything takes place and the cordyceps happens in a different year than it does the show.
Yes.
And that threw me off until they said the name Joel and Tommy because I'm like, who are these kids?
Yes.
But yeah, that's me having to juggle all the branching timelines.
It's interesting that you say that about the sympathizing aspect of it, but when you look into it, so Joel's dad, so Joel's grandfather was severely violent. towards the kids in order to teach them. Joel's dad was somewhat violent towards the kids to teach them. Not good, not correct at all. But Joel was never violent towards his kids, but was severely violent towards others. And and that's kind of the take. Like that was his version of doing things a little better, even though they weren't all good. And I think the point is that he is not doing the right things. He's just doing what he knows a little better than the bad examples that he had.
Mm.
You know, and that I don't see the danger of people sympathizing more. I like the idea of just being understand more.
I can review this scene in 3 words, and those words are Tony fucking Dalton, who the last few years we've seen him be wasted by Marvel on Hawkeye and then even more wasted on Daredevil. But if you watched Better Call Saul, where he played Lalo Salamanca and was largely responsible for bringing that show to the heights where it's like, holy shit, is Better Call Saul is good or maybe better than Breaking Bad? Tony Dalton played a huge part in getting that to that show to that level. So getting to see him just absolutely cook in this scene was a nice reminder of how damn good that man can be.
And how annoying Daredevil Born Again was.
Yes. I don't really have the concerns Mike had with the scene. Like, I just thought it slid into the narrative perfectly. I will say I'm going to give myself a little bit of credit, but then I'm going to point out how stupid I am at the same time. I figured it out. I figured it out very quickly. As soon as those kids were on screen, I was watching with my daughter. I mean, it took me like 5 seconds and I'm like, that's Joel and Tommy. Like I was on it like that. However, I'm dumb because when it rolled back around at the end of the episode and we got Joel delivering, the lines to Ellie that his dad had to deliver to him, didn't see it coming. And I was like, whoa, why didn't I see that coming? Of course, that's where they were going with this. So, I'm a big cold open guy too. You watch enough TV, you appreciate a good cold open. And I thought this was a fantastic one. And it's such a well job on Joel's dad. It's like, he's obviously a guy who, beats his kids or gets a little violent with his kids, but almost immediately he's not a villain. This is a character who, has clearly not always done the right thing and knows he hasn't always done the right thing. But, there's shades of gray here and he's a complex character. And this all happens in the span of like 4 minutes or something. So incredible writing.
And also the building of the scene of it looks like the theme of father figure protectors is a legacy in the Miller family, because I don't know what his grandfather did, but Joel's dad is a cop. And we know that either both Tommy and Joel served, or at least Tommy served in the military. Like they have this built-in gusto to protect others. Whether they go to the deep end in the way they issue said protection, but it's something that's built into them, into this family.
Yeah, it's a great moment. It instantly made perfect sense. One of the hardest things that the show can do is add a backstory to Joel, right? And make it that seamless. Like, that's something I never would have thought of. And I'm pretty sure Druckmann and everybody, when they were making The Last of Us 2, they're like, yeah, we don't need to know about Joel's past. The furthest we go back is Sarah. We don't need to see anything before that. But for them to actually have the guts to say, hey, we're going to go to Joel's childhood and we're going to show how violence can beget violence, as we see. We learn that from his father, but it also affects the next generation of kids, right? And how they tackle those same questions of violence differently, right? Like Ellie's form of violence is still different from Joel's form of violence, and it's still that cycle continuing, which is a big theme of The Last of Us 2, is those continuous cycles. So I think all of that is really well done. The only gripe I have is that, yeah, I just don't know if we need to instill more sympathy for Joel Miller because of other things that are to come. But we get the porch scene to tackle some of that, and we'll get to that later down the line. We have to get through some birthdays, though. You're muted, B.
Now, another great thing the episode does, which is unique to the episode and unique to the show, is that so we've mentioned this a lot. We knew the flashbacks were coming. They were in the trailers for the season, and these like 80% of all the footage that we see in these flashbacks are in the game, and there were one-to-one representations. But the big twist here is everything is done in the game through Ellie's eyes. In the show, everything is through Joel's eyes. Joel is the definitive perspective, um, and kind of our viewpoint into these moments. Him um, trying to get Ellie's cake, preparing it. Him seeing the evolution of the child Ellie to teenager Ellie to fuck the world older teenage Ellie. Like the evolution of this child into a young woman, and how she evolves throughout, and how that affects how she views Joel, and of course leads to bigger darker moments that we see later in the episode. But I think that was a very interesting touch, of not only as a farewell to Pedro, as Joel Miller, but also it allows us to, I think, connect more emotionally with him for the moments that need to be emotionally powerful for us, the viewers. Because I think the way the porch, we keep going back to the porch because it's going to be the final moment we're going to talk about, which is the strongest and most powerful moment of the scene of the episode. But I think the fact that everything comes from Joel, when Joel says the things he says, then those words carry a lot more weight because we've been traveling with him in the driver's seat throughout these moments. Um, favorite favorite birthday for you guys? Is there a favorite birthday moment flashback for you guys from this list of flashbacks?
I mean, it's the museum, obviously, just because I have such an attachment to it from the game, and it plays out pretty one-to-one here. I mean, we're not walking around the museum like I got to do into the game, but all the big beats are there.
You're waiting for the triangle button to be like,
yeah,
inspect.
Yeah. So
dinosaur.
Just seeing that play out almost exactly as it plays out in the game was emotional. So yeah, that would probably be my favorite. And it makes me wonder, like Mike said he thought some of this might have worked better in like if it was episode 4, but I don't think you can have Space Museum in episode 4. I think it's too fast after Joel's death to roll back to that. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure we should be having it now. It might still be too early. This might have been more effective later on down the road.
Yeah.
But that also kind of depends on how far next week takes us and how next season is structured. And so, there are, depending on what happens, it's possible this is as late as they could have waited to do it. But without knowing the full big picture, it's tough to say. But hugely a highlight of the video game, much like, Take On Me scene that we talked about, just seeing it perfectly done in live action. And my God, Bella was good in that scene.
It's a perfect recreation of the game. Like it's everything I could have ever wanted from that scene. I'm going to choose a different birthday moment though, to go into the question. It's the guitar. I mean, I'm a big guitar guy. You guys know this. And so seeing Joel handcraft this thing for Ellie is just, it makes the take on me scene even more powerful, right? Because it's like, this was not just, oh, Joel taught her how to play guitar. It's like, this is a very like personal connection that these two have. And it's going to make another moment that's going to happen in season 4 hurt even more. So the guitar undoubtedly is my favorite moment, but I'm biased. I mean, I literally have a guitar painting like right here. So
I think the collection of moments. Yeah, I'm gonna cop now, and that's a cop out. I
birthday
think,
cake. Who needs plates?
yeah, right. Um, I liked all the things that were original to the show. I love the space shuttle. I love the guitar. I love the connections to what's happening in the show, and I love how even though everything's done through Joel's eyes, we also get a sense of of something that the show is doing, which they've done it twice now. So it's very possible that this is going to be a mechanic that we might see later on, storytelling wise. And it's that if you remember in episode 7 of The Last of Us season 1, that is the Left Behind episode. And the Left Behind episode, it's used to provide a window into what's going on inside of Ellie and what's driving her to fight to keep Joel alive. Instead of running away and listening to him, what is the drive that's pushing her to keep Joel alive? And I like how, especially with Future Days being sung by Pedro and the emotion heavy, full of melancholy way that he does, um, it reminds me of how they're using this mechanic where these flashbacks are there to fuel our view of what's going inside of Ellie, what's driving her, what's pushing her. And interestingly enough, when episode 5 ends, it doesn't end with the torture of Nora, it ends with the beginning of birthday number 1. And I like in the fact that it kind of goes to show us that in a way Ellie is so broken by the death of Joel that the happy things that she got from Joel, she can't do anymore. But the violence that she executes to deal with her grief brings those happy moments back because she feels she's finally doing something for what she's in regards to what she's feeling about. And I find it so heartbreaking that when he plays Future Days, he's talking about the love, pretty much talking about the relationship that he's having with Ellie, and of course later on the fear of losing that relationship. But when Ellie tries to play the song, she can't because that beautiful moment, the guitar is no longer enough to connect her with Joel. So I
That
like how.
it's
Go
those
ahead.
moments there that's why I'm like, should this episode have been before that, right? So so the audience can make that the connection you just made with Future Days, right? How many show onlys, like non-gamers who aren't paying as much attention, even remember that she was playing Future Days like 2 episodes ago? You know, like that's where it's like narratively, this episode is perfect. I do wonder if we should have introduced those ideas, those concepts, right? Of what's driving Ellie. Like learning what's driving Ellie with 1 episode to go. I don't know if that was the right call.
I was trying to figure out if they just did that stuff chronologically, like, got a little less clever with flashbacks and where stuff was positioned and just went from, the end of The Last of Us Part 1, kicking off the new season, and went chronologically through this stuff, which is not exactly what the game does either.
Right.
But is everything just as powerful that way? Or does it work worse that way? Or does it work better that way? And again, I just finished this episode, so these are things I'm still wrestling with.
Yeah.
I get wanting to do You have to do Space Museum as a flashback. I mean, I think you have to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I get the the idea of, ooh, we can sort of move a lot of these things around so that we can have this big flashback episode in episode 6 and sort of mirror Left Behind in season 1 and kind of package a lot of the stuff together. But it's tough to say right now if it's better or worse, or if it's just different. And especially as Mike and I were talking about before we hit record, because the porch scene we don't see until way later in the game, correct?
Yep.
So,
So interesting enough is that's one of those things that surprised me, but I do totally get why it happened now. The porch scene is the last shot of the game. It's the very last shot. Like that's where it happens. We don't see it till the very end. And for the sake of where the show has built the story now and what's promised to come in season 3 specifically, it makes all the sense to do it here. And I do see where we might get another view of this same scene in the future, but I can
right.
see why it needed to happen here.
That's what I was going to say, because if you put the scene here, which I get because they're trying to make this season feel like a complete story in itself.
Right,
I get that. But then you take something away from the final act that you really need in the final act. So do we just get it again?
I mean, that
it's interesting.
With the context that we have now, that is 2 seasons from now. They could just run it back and play the same scene, because that's going to be like 4 years from now, and
Stop
that's why
playing with my emotions, Mike. Don't use clocks now.
Yeah, I know, right? But that's why the question of should they have just played this out in chronological order, it's a fair question, because I think the jumping back and forth through time works perfectly fine in the game. It's working mostly okay this season again, even though I bring it up as a concern. That's not me saying, oh, this is the worst thing ever made. It's still working for the most part this season.
Yeah.
But the themes of The Last of Us are so powerful, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like it might just, I've said this before, but it might just be losing its bite a little bit of getting the porch scene now and seeing it again in its proper context. It's not going to hit the same because we have already seen it. They can show it again, but it's not going to have the same level of impact. We have the anime show, The Amateur Otaku, right? And Brandon, how many times have we seen All Might tell Deku he can become a hero, right? Throughout the course of My Hero Academia. 100 times. But never hits like it did the first time.
It never does.
And so
it's not till the end of the series where he flips it around in a certain way that it brings new life to that mantra.
And yet, I was going to say still again, and I agree with all of that, but it also still makes sense to me that it's like they want to fully sort of complete Joel and Ellie's story this season and not extend Revelations or extend that sort of
for sure, because
the things that sort of separate them and then bring them back together, like you don't want to drag that on, especially when Pedro Pascal is not going to be in the show anymore.
Like he officially said goodbye to everybody.
Yeah,
like he's done.
Yeah, this kind of goes back to what I was saying. What was it? Episode 1? It had to have been episode 1 when we had the cliffhanger of Ellie staring at Joel on the porch. And I was saying, maybe we just do it now because of that, because you do want to wrap that up, right? You need to have some semblance of an arc in this season, because we're effectively just doing a third of a story. And that is not satisfying for anyone. And that's where this becomes that interesting, give and take where, we might be I can totally see the writer's room saying, we are going to sacrifice this moment towards the end of the story. We'll make up for it and we'll figure it out later. That's 2 seasons from now. I don't even know if they planned out that far, but they know for sure they had to wrap up this story arc. And I think they did it well. Again, this episode, 10 out of 10 for me. I think they did it well.
Yeah, I mean, we should all be clear. This episode is incredible.
Right.
We're having these discussions and asking these questions because it's fun and interesting to talk
And
about
we
and try
care.
to suss things. Yeah, and we care. But I mean, this episode's incredible.
Yeah. And it's interesting that my biggest thing is that I think because of the decision of making this Ellie season, I also kind of wonder story wise. It kind of I didn't think about it this way till now, but it's like they knew the weight, the emotional weight behind these moments was so clear in the writings room that they needed to create enough distance between them. And these moments being Joel's death and the final talks between Joel and Ellie, right? Like they kind of understood that there needed to be enough room between these two scenes because they will not do the desired effect to the viewer if they're anywhere too close. And based on how they structured the season, I kind of feel that they each had their own they each had their day, especially it being a weekly television show. We had enough time to grieve Joel, so now we can grieve Joel differently because now we understand more of Ellie's side of it. Like now we understand, now we suffered the loss of Joel and the brutality of that action and how that transformed Ellie into the person that she's becoming into due to that death. But now we understand Ellie even more in terms of why she actually crawled to him, because that crawl now takes a completely different context. It's not just the fact that she was someone important. This was someone that she almost wrote off and she was about to start over with, and it was just stripped away. So I do like I do come to terms with the fact that it happening now. I personally like how it recontextualizes the whole season, and I kind of want to watch. So my mom watched the show, so I kind of want to have the conversation with her because she kind of texted me. She finally got caught up. She texted me like 2 weeks ago after episode 2. Brandon, what the hell, man? Like this just happened. What am I gonna do now? Why? She literally said, "Why am I gonna watch the show anymore?" Which you've brought it up multiple times, Mike. And one of the things that I mentioned is, well, now we have to. Now we do have a reason. Is it? Yeah, I want to know what Ellie's gonna do now because of the weight of the death of that character. So I kind of want to ask TV only viewers, how does this episode recontextualize everything that we've seen so far? Because I actually like that kind of storytelling, but I do see how it can be very troublesome, especially in comparison to probably what we're used to, or how the game itself structures everything.
Well, yeah, like it goes back to what Robert's been saying almost the whole season of like, we're gonna take a 2-year break after this next episode. So it's like not only just having the hook to convince them to come back after traumatizing them this much, but also wrapping up a semblance of a storyline in these
Yeah.
7 episodes is a tough
It's
task. And I'm
yeah,
so glad I'm not in that writer's room. Like
yeah,
I
yeah.
can come up here and give my issues and like question some of the direction, but it's like I don't know how you fix that, man. I'm sorry.
I
And
believe
I
I've
think
said I
go
believe
go
I've
ahead.
said multiple times during the show that The Last of Us Part 1 was a layup of an adaptation, and The Last of Us Part 2 is one of the most difficult adaptations anyone could attempt.
Yeah.
Yep. And they're taking it full on. Like they're doing it. They're sticking to their guns, and they're coming up with clear wins. And I think they also knew that a lot of people will question them, but it is still fantastic television. We want, and I like you mentioned before, it's good television. We part of us care so much we want it to be great, right, Robert? We want it to be great all around, but it's that. But yeah, I think like I mentioned, the birthday with the guitar, but in that context is my favorite. I do like the fact that we finally get a moment in Birthday 17, um, where we see Kat and Ellie together, because now it's only talked about and mentioned in the game. We never see it, and we see the birth of the tattoo. I also we never talked about it. We find out how the burn mark happened. Ellie did it to herself, while working in Jackson, or cooking in Jackson, which Ellie just, she's wild, man.
It's interesting. Just again, Bella and Pedro chemistry is incredible. It can't be matched, honestly. And are the those moments just kind of highlight, again, like you were saying, right, the things that Ellie lost when Joel's death.
Yeah.
And it's just that father-daughter relationship is something that's touched on in the first season and in the first game. But once we do a time jump, especially since Ellie and Joel have beef, once we do a time jump, we don't really know how that relationship progressed. And so seeing it actually become that actual like father-daughter relationship, that it was nice to see that play out a bit, and seeing how much he cares for her and how much that relationship kind of matured and progressed, and then seeing it fall apart right as she gets older.
That's what I was going to say, because I thought that scene was like largely for the most part, a throwaway. Like, it's a fine scene, but I don't think it's among anywhere near the most important things going on in that episode. It was just merely there, I think, to show a widening rift between Joel and Ellie as she aged. And in that regard, it worked.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Because it starts the conversation of, maybe I need my own space. It starts the conversation of, now we know how she gets to the garage. We know how the tattoo happened. And it's a nice follow-up to the idea that Joel maybe doesn't want to admit certain characteristics of who Ellie is. And he's coming to terms with that, especially after.
I had way more fun in the astronaut scene. I'm going to mangle this dialogue, but when Joel's getting nosy about her and Jesse, and she's like, are you into him? I have a sense for these things. And she's like, I don't think you do.
I think
great stuff.
Don't worry, Joel. I won't get pregnant.
Yeah, that stuff. I was cackling through that stuff. Bella really good in those bits too.
Yep.
Bella was amazing this week.
Yep. Yes, she was.
Bella's always phenomenal. Like they deliver incredible performances every week. And it kind of goes back to something Rob was saying earlier. I think the writers do have a slightly better grasp on younger Ellie, and like her dialogue and her scenes and everything. Like, just it felt a little bit more natural. And it's not Bella's fault.
It's a lot more natural, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that comes down to, like, in the 19-year-old Bella scenes, they're trying to retain some of that, which people liked from the first season, while marrying it with the Last of Us Part 2 video game version of Ellie, who's a stone cold, relentless killer, basically. And it's just been, it's been a little bit bumpy.
And I think also because they've made, it's funny you say that, because I'm always with my duck. I think it also has to do with the fact that, similar to the show Breaking Bad, they want to show more of the spiral of how she becomes that stone cold killer, how she continues to lose those things that made her the Ellie that we all know.
Yeah,
and make her into somewhere else.
That is a great point, because that's a large part of what that video game is about, is Ellie losing herself and losing her humanity and losing that version of her we fell in love with in part 1. And a big part of it becomes, can she get it back, or is she ever going to decide to throw it away entirely? And those and I don't think that's spoiling anything. I'm not giving answers to those, but those questions are going to be huge as we move throughout these seasons.
Yeah, it's not a spoiler, because that's what we hinted at last week, right? Of her scenes with Nora.
Yep. And this is something powerful too. Is like, I find it interesting that this particular episode, because of the nature of it, raises the stakes for the entire season, and it raises the stakes to Ellie, and what is really at cost. Because when you think about it, she finally has a connection with someone that she could be as close to as she was with Joel. What is going to happen with that connection? And because and I like the final shot of the episode at the end of day 1 of Seattle, or day 2, No, day 2 of Seattle.
Day 2.
She is. You can kind of see that part of her regrets going back to the theater because she knows what she just did. And you can see in her face that she's carrying all of that.
I don't think it's regret though.
True.
Yeah,
it's transforming her. Like you can see.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's her locking into the mission and losing herself, basically.
Yeah,
but I don't.
That's
think
how I
she's
read
regretting
it.
Yeah,
I read it as like sheer determination of just like, yeah, okay, I'm just doing this now.
Yeah, like but she's not done yet, and yeah.
But in my mind, I kind of look forward to the friction that's going to start occurring between those that she loves and the mission, because that's actually part of one of the big points of the story too.
You guys aren't skipping Joey Pants, are you? Don't you dare skip Joey Pants.
Oh no, that's its own section. Calm down. That's its own section.
Just making sure. I'd walk right off the show if we were skipping Joey Pants.
Joey Pants, damn it. But before we jump into the Joey Pants of it all, whether or not the steak tastes real or not.
Pause.
Hey, he knows the steak isn't real. But ignorance is bliss, my friend. Such a great movie. Such a great line. Another new thing as we set up the fall of Joey Pants. That moment with Bella where she is rehearsing, prepping herself to have a conversation with Joel. I love how at the end of that phenomenal 16th birthday in the museum, the last shot is Bella getting distracted. And we don't see why she's distracted. But then the camera zooms there and she's looking at fireflies. That in the midst of all the happiness, the lie is still there.
I adored that shot. 10 out of 10. No notes.
Yeah.
It's taking everything in my power not to make an Owl City joke, but go on.
It's all there, right? And go ahead.
I'd like to make myself believe. No.
Right. And so, and it leads up to this Ellie that's no longer a child, that is thinking for herself even more, that's smart, that's clever, that has met other people and built relationships with other people. And she's like, I feel that I need to have a conversation with him. 14-year-old me couldn't, but 19-year-old me probably has the ability to have this conversation now. And then we go into the birthday present of the year 19, which is going on patrol with Joel for the first time. A quiet, easy patrol becomes an event because they found infected in another section, and they call Joel and Ellie's patrol to come find out and help. And we find Eugene, played by Joey Pants. And he is Gail's husband, and he has been bit. And Joel gives himself away. What was it to you guys? The idea that they literally recreated the ending of part 1 in a different way to show Ellie the truth.
I thought it was extremely clever. I thought it was really smart, honestly. I'd like to know. I kind of half watched the post show and I didn't listen to the podcast, but I'm curious who came up with that, whether it was Mason or Druckmann or somebody else.
So it was them. It was all three of them. And I listened to the podcast, and one of the things they were talking about I didn't think about, but it makes all the sense in the world, is that in the game, we all know that Ellie actually makes her way to Salt Lake City by herself. and finds evidence
Right.
of what Joel did. And then when Joel comes after her because he finds out where she's gone, that's where the conversation occurs and the big rift occurs, right? But one of the things that they talked about, that because the show is a lot more grounded, it does not make realistic sense that this 19-year-old will make it all the way to Salt Lake City on her own. So they went, okay, we have to get to this point. The porch thing is going to happen. So what they did was, which I think was brilliant, like you said, it was super smart. They recreated the same thing, and then they added the questions to the porch scene.
I think you can make a case that the show way is better because Joel gives himself away.
Yes. Yes.
And I think that makes
I like that.
I think it sort of makes it more dynamic, and it gives Pedro a chance to do some incredible acting on the way out the door, presumably for good. And like I said, it's a different way for Ellie to sort of find out what she already suspects or confirm what she already suspects.
Right.
I just thought it was really clever how they went about that.
I loved also at the when Ellie's ratting him out. Like, she's not playing along, right? Because we're gonna talk about the Joy Pants moment in a minute, but when she tells Gail the truth, and Gail slaps Joel, leaves, and Joel looks at Ellie surprised, like, what the hell just happened? And Ellie doesn't say, you promised. Ellie says, you swore.
Yeah.
It's all in the verbiage. And that's like, And I like how when she walks away, did you notice it's kind of the same shot as at the end of episode 5, where they're burying Henry and Sam? That Ellie is just drifting away. And Joel is just there in the dust. There's just such great imagery there. That's just great. Mike, Joey Pants
Joey Pants
as Eugene, bro.
This scene was tough. It was great. Everything you guys said is correct. My only small issue with the
Damn
change,
it, Mike.
my only small issue with the change, right, of changing how Ellie puts these things together, right? We've had an issue of Ellie not being the brightest character this season. And so taking that away from her a little bit kind of still sucks. But like you guys have said, it makes more sense. Like Joel giving himself away and her being smart enough to put 2 and 2 together makes up for it a little bit. But like, yeah, her going out of her way to figure that out, I do think would have helped, especially this version of Ellie, because I have had that complaint about how we don't give her a lot of things to do and a lot of agency, and they kind of dumb her down a little bit. That said, the scene's great. Joey Pan's phenomenal. Again, and Bella and Pedro, the porch scene, phenomenal. You know, like seeing all of that come together, him lying to Gail to her face, and then Ellie's just like, dude, come on. What are we doing here, man? Piece of
Not even that. I'm gonna let you crash and burn. I don't care. Like,
right. Like, no shit. Like, but that just shows the type of person Joel is, because not only did he lie about him killing Eugene, he gave the whole backstory of he was so brave, he wanted us to tell you he loved you. He's like, dude, you are so full of crap.
Yep.
And I love that moment, because it's like, not only will Joel do what he thinks is best, right? He felt like, and I get the logic of you don't want to bring an infected into camp. I get it. I understand it. But
it is Jackson protocol.
Right. And so like I totally get it. But it just reinforces he will lie to save his own ass. and he's not afraid to kill people. And that's really what the takeaway of like he not only
Yeah,
murdered
but
this
it's
man,
not
he
even.
lied to his wife to her
Which,
face. It's
by the
just it's
way, totally
maniacal.
tracks. I mean, this totally tracks. This is who Joel is in season 1.
Yep.
I mean,
Right.
Yep.
he's
Yep.
this man has done some bad things.
And it's not
Yeah.
to save himself; it's to protect Ellie.
Yeah.
He's not gonna, and it all goes back to the protection thing. But
But what's twisted is he's not protecting us. She had nothing to do with this. That's why it's like she outed him and she's like, I'm free, man.
Peace out.
So the one thing I just want to call out for being so much fun is, and I'm gonna put some respect on it and use his full name, but Joe Pantoliano is a flat out legend. Catherine O'Hara is a flat out legend. I have been watching these two actors my entire life, and to see them get these roles, I mean, even though Joe is only in this show for 3 minutes or whatever it is, he crushes it. Catherine O'Hara is obviously, we've gotten a lot more time with her. She crushes it. And it's just great that this show is big enough and that HBO has enough money that they can get actors of that caliber. And look, Pantoliano, I think, is like mostly retired now. But the fact that they sort of have the money and the commitment and the power to be like, we want these legends to play these parts in the show is just a blast.
It's such a great performance, right? You were saying he only had like 3 minutes of screen time. Like Joel walks him out, he gives him that last view, and he's like, I don't want to say goodbye for her. I want to say it for me, right? And it's like,
I need her last words. That is such a powerful delivery. I don't think I've seen that before.
Yeah, and that's a point of view that you don't think about in a show like this, right? Like him even saying the cordyceps makes you cold. It's like we've never seen somebody turn and like the processes of that, right? Like it's usually they get bit or they get killed or they immediately like get taken down. But like seeing the process of him like slowly losing himself and the fear of that, I thought was just a fantastic delivery. And it's one of my favorite performances of the show in general. And he's only here for like 2 minutes.
If someone would have grabbed me like a year and a half ago and said like, yo, there's going to be a season 2 episode of The Last of Us and Joe Pantoliano and Catherine O'Hara and Tony Dalton are all going to be in it, I'd have been like, what? Like, what? No way. That's amazing. And guess what? It was amazing.
Yeah.
Not just that, the fact that they're all show original characters too, right? It's like,
yeah,
that's unbelievable.
That moment where Joel comes to, she's just enjoying her book and her drink or whatever, because she runs on alcohol, and she's just enjoying her afternoon, and Joel just come in, and her response was just, her delivery was just perfect. Do I have a sign that says doctor, like right on this table? And then she answers the question, and Joel just leave, and she goes like just come in and barge in and
the moth and butterfly mix up on Joel's part is so funny, but also unbelievably dark.
Yep. I don't know. And great additions to the Last of Us pantheon of legends. And I think we're there, guys. We're at the porch scene. And of the things that stayed, of course, we have the return of Ellie and Joel in the intro. But we have the porch scene. And this scene broke. I think I was watching it in the car. I was coming from spending the whole day in Orlando. But I was watching it in the car. I wasn't driving, I promise. And I think because I wasn't like in my living room, that's the reason I wasn't tearing up and breaking up. But I think the fact that the conversation that Helly was preparing herself to have occurred the way it occurred at the porch I think it hits harder than it does in the game. Because in the game, after everything that occurs, all you get is the sense that a person that she had distanced herself from, which is the most important person in her life, she is willing to restart, right? I love that we're given a front row seat to see how devastating this conversation actually is. Because she knows that if the answer is what she's expecting to hear, which she kind of already knows, she knows that all it's going to do is push her further away. Like, she knows the result is possibly that she'll never be able to look him again in the eye. He'll never be able to hug him again. He'll never be able to be affectionate with him again in any way, shape, or form. But she cannot not ask the questions. And and as she asks the questions, the tears are streaming down Joel's eyes. He has no words. He just nods. He just shakes his head. And how they walk us through that. Such a raw exchange of emotion and truths. And the fact that the last word that Joel shares with us is the fact that I love you in a way that you cannot even begin to understand. And hopefully one day, if you have one of your own, damn, I'm fucking teared up now.
She's gonna be a dad.
It's gonna be she may be a little better, but damn, Robert, this whole scene, bro.
Yeah,
It's hard to talk about.
It was very emotional, and I got a little verklempt, and it reminded me of how powerful and strong that this story can be when fully told properly, which they absolutely did in this scene. And I just thought it was, like I said, it was everybody's Emmy reel, and
Yep.
they crushed it.
Yep. Yeah, I can see different people that I care about crying in this scene because it's just it's one of those moments like you have two people that undoubtedly love each other, but the truth and the lies are just destroying them. And seeing that in full display is just so heartbreaking. But of course, it leads to the second most powerful line, which is, I don't think I'll be able to forgive you for this. And Pedro just destroyed because he knows that that is the only result. But then Ellie comes out the other side saying, but I want to try. And then,
Which I believe is verbatim from the game.
yes, that last exchange from Bella is so the only thing that they've added to this exchange, in my understanding, is the questions. The questions did not happen in the game. That's already a truth that we've explored. But it happening here, it happening this way, it's so perfect for the show. But I one of the things that I love and hate it because of how it makes me feel, but I love because of the arts, because of the art's full execution is that when she says, "But I am, I am willing to try," you automatically get transferred back to the death. Like you're just taken back to that room, and the fact that she's just crawling to him and crying because she was willing to try, and it doesn't matter anymore.
I think you can make the case that now that that story's wrapped back around and we have the full picture of everything that happened up to Joel's death, I think we can make the argument that that unequivocally works. Now, we can still talk about whether everything that happened after Joel's death chronologically has worked, which we're less sure about and have had some differing opinions on the show about.
Yeah.
But I think it's fair to say specifically, you know, we're talking episodes 1, episodes 2, and now what we see here.
Yeah.
That basically that trilogy of episodes completes that arc in, I think, a successful manner.
Yeah.
All I'm hearing is every episode that Pedro Pascal is in is a 10 out of 10.
Stop it. Just stop it.
I'm just saying the ones he's not in are the ones we question.
But the thing is, it's not that I don't love video game Joel. I love video game Joel. And once he's gone, the story's so fantastic that it doesn't
But
matter.
he's not a Latin puppy. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. It's just
Pedro Sadi, Pascal.
Like, I can't agree with Mike here.
Yeah.
This story should be able to work without him and may still.
Yes.
Oh, again, I'm still of the opinion that the game
will.
doesn't necessarily work, but that's a whole other conversation.
I don't like to talk about it.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about your truth. We're not going to talk about your truths, okay?
I understand. Have a nice day.
But Mike, the porch scene. Talk to us.
Yeah, this is one of the best scenes of the entire show, like hands down. I love how we can just let the actors cook, right? There's nothing fancy going on. We just have Pedro and Bella for like 2 minutes on this porch. We don't get fancy with the editing or the camera angles or the lighting. It's just, here's the material, which from The Last of Us Part 2, again, phenomenal scene in the game. And we just let them go to town with it, right? And the questions that you were saying, or that they added, I think helped the show a lot. I don't think we needed them in the game because, again, you've just spent 26 hours by the time you get back to this point. Everything's already like explained and laid out for you. But in the context of what this show is doing this season, I think that was a really much needed addition for the characters. One thing that's underrated that we haven't touched on is the passage of time. We've talked about it, seeing Ellie grow up, but also seeing Joel as well, right? And him change and him get older and how he is learning to deal. Because these are, going back to season 1, these are moments he never really got with Sarah, right? Like, she didn't grow to be 19, right? And so he's also learning how to parent a young adult, essentially. And like,
he never got that opportunity.
Right. And so seeing this version of Joel and how he progresses, not only do I think Pedro delivers a fantastic performance in that moment, but it's also, the porch scene is bittersweet because it is that final goodbye, but it's a good goodbye too, because they were on that path of forgiveness, right? And working things out. And so in Joel's death, as crappy as it was and as sudden as it was, at least he and Ellie were on semi good terms, and that can make you sleep a little bit better at night.
They were in the beginning of
Like, when she's you're going back to his death, right? But when she says I'm willing to try, I go back to the beginning of episode 2 where she's with Jesse and she's like, yeah, me and Joel are working things out, and she's like pretty happy about it, and it's like, oh gosh, this hurts so much more. We need to go kill Abby right now, and that's when we get to the end of the episode. And it's like, that all works for me. It really does. It really works for me.
Guys, I just need a break, because the reason I was watching this episode today is because I was at the Pearl Jam concert on Sunday, and as predicted, Eddie Vedder did play Future Days solo on stage, and I was a mess. And then today I come home, today I work, blah, blah, blah. I'm ready to sit down and watch this episode a day late, and all of this unfurls on my TV, and I'm a mess again. So can I have a day tomorrow where maybe I'm not crying about something?
No, somehow Future Days is just going to be playing again, and you're going to be crying your eyes out again, Robert. Mission Impossible end credits, Future Days, for no reason whatsoever.
Hey, I do have Final Reckoning on Wednesday. I might be crying during Final Reckoning, though. We don't know.
Hey, we don't know if they're going to do the James Bond thing, and spoilers to No Time to Die, by the way.
Ethan Hunt dies and Future Days plays on the soundtrack.
No, Ethan Hunt dies because he starts running, slips in a banana, in a tribute to old Mission Impossible comedy years. And that's the end of Ethan Hunt.
No, Luther's death would hit way more than Ethan. We expect Ethan to die at this point. Leave Luther out of this. That's all I have to say. Christopher McQuarrie, I got my eye on you.
I'm tired of Neil Druckmann and Eddie Vedder just fucking me all up, because they just keep doing it.
So, guys, I think we're done the thing, guys.
We did it.
We felt like we did the thing. The
Yeah,
thing was
we got
done.
one more episode this season. We can't wait.
Which
I
is
think
crazy, by the way. I watched this with my daughter, and the trailer, next week's season finale, and she was like, wait a minute, next week's the season finale? And I'm like, yep.
Yep.
And
the trailer looks like they're doing all the things. And like we see the Ferris wheel, we see the aquarium from the outside, we see the little boat. I think it's gonna be an hour and a half episode. Just
I was about to
saying.
ask, how long do you guys think that episode has to be? Because
I think it has to be an hour and a half. I mean, I think that's the only way it works, or at least an hour and 15 minutes. I mean, this one was an hour and 10 minutes almost. So,
kind of, we spent like 9 minutes with Druckmann and Mason talking about the episode. To be fair, I think
yeah.
I
don't.
have one big question about next week, although we don't want to spoil stuff. So let me think of how I can do this. I'm very curious if the episode is going to end in the theater or if we're going to get a sneak peek of what season 3 is likely to
I don't know
like.
why, but I have a feeling we're going to get like a season 3 trailer at the end of this. I have a feeling that because there's certain scenes.
You know what? I'm just going to go there. I suspect that in the last 20 seconds of the show, we're going to see the word Seattle Day 1 on screen.
I'm not surprised.
That's my guess.
I'm not surprised if that's, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Or we could cut to black in the theater.
That would be. Well, I mean, I have a feeling that I think, okay, if we're going to use the law of precedence, there is precedence of an episode ending with the beginning of another.
Yeah.
It just happened with episode 5. It kind of happens with the Left Behind episode. So there's precedence to it happening that way. And it would make sense because season 3 is not just another story. It's a direct continuation of what part 2 is. So,
or we don't even get that far. But like you said, based on the glimpses we see in the trailer, it looks like we get that far.
And there's shots, I think, from the other storyline that we see in the trailers, but we haven't seen in the show. So I have a feeling we're getting a scissor reel. We're getting something,
and we're getting a little spoilery. So I don't want to. We'll save it for that last episode we're talking about.
So
we'll
guys,
see what happens. And
yeah. So guys, we've done the thing. Robert, where can people find you, my friend?
I'm on Bluesky. It's right there. Also, I'm at rbtrights.com. You can find links to all of my social medias and writings and scribblings and thingies. rbtrights.com. Or just do a Google search for Robert Brian Taylor. That's me. All my stuff pops up. I have a big article I have a huge article coming out in about 4 days. I'll tease that.
Yay.
Let's go.
Mike, what you got going on?
Yeah, you can find me at Novice Cinephile on the YouTubes, the TikToks, the Blueskys, the Novice Cinephile on Instagram and Threads. We here at the Chatter After just ranked all of the Mission Impossibles and leading into the Final Reckoning. So that was a ton of fun. Check that out. We're also going to have to talk about Final Reckoning and Lilo and Stitch because we have some fun stuff coming up here Memorial Day weekend. So we'll do episodes on those as well. And yeah, again, Isaac and I are probably going to be talking more MHA and anime stuff over on Otaku. So you can check that out if you are into the anime stuff. Also, before we go, just to reiterate, there's 1 episode left of The Last of Us. There's 2 episodes left of Beyond the Clickers because we need to do a game spoiler chat so Robert doesn't have to keep censoring himself saying these are spoilers.
I already feel bad I mentioned those 3 words, but
Hey, we're not live. I can just cut them out. You guys have no idea what we're talking about.
You can find me at Monkey D. Raffi at Blue Sky Social. And you can find me here on the Shadow After talking The Last of Us and other movies and shows, and on the Amateur Otaku whenever I actually have time to watch anime. Thank you for joining us. If you love what we do here, make sure you subscribe to the Shadow After channel, click on that like button, and click on the bell for notifications, and share with other friends that you have that love The Last of Us, because we would love to listen to your thoughts in the comments below. Remember, stay strong, and as always, endure and survive. Have it awesome, guys. Peace.